All right, welcome in everyone, kicking off another deep dive here. Yeah, and today we're
digging into
consistency.
Yeah, the power of consistency.
The power of consistency, yeah. And, we've all heard this, just be consistent.
Right.
Okay, but what does that actually mean? We've got some great material to go through today.
Yeah.
That I think, really gets down into the nuts and bolts of what it is, how it works, and
and how we can actually use it to achieve.
Yeah, apply it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something a lot of us struggle with.
Totally.
Is how do we, we hear these things, these platitudes.
Yeah.
But how do you actually
make them actionable?
Yeah, make them actionable. So
exactly.
So why don't we kind of start out with just the really fundamental, why is consistency so important? I think a lot of times we focus on these big...
The big push.
Yeah, the big push, the big effort.
The grand gesture. Yeah. And this material really emphasizes the fact that it is the little things you do repeatedly.
Yeah.
The small things you do consistently over time.
It's almost
that have the biggest impact.
Yeah, compound interest.
Exactly. And it's one of those things that...
The analogy that really stuck with me was thinking about brushing your teeth. You know, you don't brush your teeth once a year and expect to have perfect dental hygiene, right?
Yeah.
It's that daily brushing for 2 minutes.
It's the consistency.
Consistently, that's what keeps your teeth healthy.
Yeah.
And the same applies to
and this goes for
every other area of life, really.
So many things. Fitness, learning a new skill.
Fitness, relationships.
Yeah, building a business. Anything you want to achieve, consistency is the key.
And I thought one of the coolest things that I saw in the material was this quote, "You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." And I feel like that really speaks to this idea of how...
And it ties directly into...
how consistency is so foundational.
Yeah.
So how does that work, that idea?
Well, I think the quote is saying that, we set these goals right.
Yeah.
But what actually determines whether we reach those goals are the systems that we have in place.
Yeah.
The habits that we've built.
Yeah.
The processes that we follow. And consistency is
it's what makes the system
the bedrock of any effective system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes our intentions and it turns them into actions.
Right.
If you're consistently engaging in the habits that will lead you towards your goals, you're essentially building this engine that's going to drive you forward.
Yeah, and without it, you have this, you can...
Without the consistency, your goals are just...
beautifully crafted goals.
Always wishes.
Yeah. They're just words.
Ideas, aspirations that may never come to fruition.
And I thought it was really interesting, too, how the material talked about not just the external benefits, achieving those goals, but also how it impacts our internal world.
Yeah. Our self-perception.
Our confidence. How does that work? How does being consistent actually change the way that we see ourselves?
I think the key is that when you're consistent, you build this track record with yourself.
Yeah.
You're essentially proving to yourself that you can do what you say you're going to do.
Right.
And that builds self-trust.
Yeah.
It's you go from hoping you can achieve something to knowing you can.
Right, because you've done it.
Because you've consistently shown up.
Right.
You put in the work.
You've got the receipts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that self-trust is the foundation of genuine confidence.
Yeah, it's not just
It's not just bravado.
Right.
It's not just pretending.
Yeah.
It's this deep inner knowing.
Right. Yeah.
That you are capable.
Yeah, and then that impacts.
And that changes everything.
Yeah, and I think the material also touched on how that then impacts how other people see you.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just that internal confidence.
Because consistency also builds credibility.
Right.
When you're consistent, you're signaling to the people around you that you're reliable, that you're committed, that you're not just all talk.
Yeah.
You actually follow through.
You get things done.
Exactly.
So now, let's be real for a second. We are not perfect.
None of us are.
We're
robots.
So life gets in the way. There are gonna be days when you
can't stick to the plan.
Yeah, or you just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And the material talked about this.
It's really important to understand that consistency is not about perfection. Right. It's not about never missing a day.
Yeah.
It's about the overall pattern.
Yeah.
The long-term trend.
Right. So these little slip-ups, these missed days, those don't have to completely derail you.
They don't, as long as you don't let them.
Right.
The key is to get back on track as quickly as possible.
Right. So don't beat yourself up.
Don't let one missed day turn into 2.
Yeah.
And don't let 2 missed days turn into a week.
Right.
There's this 2-day rule.
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Basically, it says you should never let yourself go more than 2 days without doing the thing that you're trying to be consistent with.
Okay.
So you can have a day off, you can have 2 days off, but on that 3rd day,
get back on the horse.
You got to get back on the horse.
Right.
Because otherwise it's too easy to fall off track completely.
Yeah. And I think that, that plays into that whole idea of the compound interest analogy, which, we've talked about a little bit, but maybe explain that a little more.
So just like with compound interest, where your money earns interest, and then that interest earns interest, and it grows exponentially over time.
Right.
The same thing happens with your efforts.
Yeah.
Each little bit of effort that you put in is like making a deposit.
Right.
And those deposits compound over time.
Okay.
So even if you have a day where you don't make a deposit, the deposits that you've already made are still working for you.
They're still earning interest.
They're still earning interest, exactly.
Okay.
So the key is to just keep making those deposits.
Right. So even with those little dips, you're still moving forward.
You're still moving forward, exactly.
Yeah.
You're still making progress.
Okay, so now let's give our listeners some actual things that they can do to be more consistent.
Let's get tactical.
Yeah.
So one of the most important things is to start small.
Okay.
Don't try to do too much too soon.
Right.
Start with something so small that it feels almost ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like if you want to start exercising, don't commit to an hour-long workout every day.
Right.
Start with 5 minutes.
Right.
5 minutes of just walking.
Right. Just move
your body.
Yeah.
Because the key is to build the habit.
Right.
And once you've built the habit,
then you can build on it.
Then you can start to increase the intensity or the duration.
Okay. That's a great one. I love that. What else?
Another really helpful strategy is to track your progress.
Okay.
Use a habit tracker.
Yeah. There's a lot of apps out there for that.
There's tons of apps.
Yeah.
Or even just a simple calendar.
Yeah. Just mark it off.
Mark off the days that you do the thing.
Right.
Because there's something really powerful about seeing your progress visually.
That's motivating.
It keeps you motivated.
Yeah.
It holds you accountable.
All right. What else?
Make it easy.
Okay.
Minimize the friction. Yeah. So if you want to work out in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before.
Right. So you're not like scrambling around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you want to read more, keep a book
to your bed
on your nightstand.
Yeah.
Like make it as easy as possible to do the thing that you want to do.
Right.
Because the easier it is,
the more likely you are to do it.
The more likely you are to actually do it. So set yourself up for success.
Love it. Okay, so we've talked about starting small, we've talked about tracking our progress, we've talked about making it easy. Anything else?
Yeah, 2 more things.
Okay.
One is to commit publicly or with a buddy.
Okay.
So tell someone what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Or even better, find someone to do it with you.
Right.
Because when you have that external accountability, it's much harder to let yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
And it's also more fun.
Right. Yeah.
When you're doing it with someone else.
Yeah. You can support each other. Yeah.
And then the last thing is to celebrate your wins.
Okay.
No matter how small they are.
Yeah.
Every time you show up.
Right.
Every time you do the thing that you said you were going to do.
Right.
Give yourself a pat on the back.
Right.
Acknowledge your effort.
Yeah.
Because it's important to reinforce that positive behavior.
Right.
And it makes it more likely that you'll continue to do it.
Yeah. It makes it feel good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So celebrate those wins.
Awesome. So I think what we've seen here is that, really big achievements are much more likely to come.
When you focus on.
Yeah, when you focus on
the small, consistent actions.
Yeah, those consistent small steps.
Yeah.
Rather than
trying to do it all at once.
Yeah, that like heroic effort.
Exactly.
That you just can't sustain.
Yeah.
And I think it's really about, we talked about this before, about shifting
your mindset.
Yeah, shifting your mindset from
motivation.
Yeah, from relying on motivation to
momentum.
Yeah, to building momentum.
Yeah, because motivation comes and goes.
Yeah.
But momentum is something that you can build through consistent action.
Right. And once you have that momentum,
it's much easier to keep going.
Yeah, it almost starts to pull you along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So prioritize showing up, even in the days when you don't feel like it.
And I think that's where that quote, consistency beats intensity.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Such a good quote.
Really comes into play.
It really sums it all up.
Yeah.
Because it's saying that in the long run, it's the slow and steady that wins the race.
Yeah.
Not the hare.
So as you're thinking about your goals, what is that one tiny thing that you can do consistently starting today?
Yeah, what's the smallest step you can take?
Yeah, that will move
in the right direction towards those goals. Think about that. And that's all for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.